encaustic to create wonderful textures on a painting. So rather than just using an image like this as is, as an oil painting, if you wanted to add texture to the work, encaustic is one of the most wonderful ways of doing that. This is already quite a fresh image and I like it, but you'll see as I go through the process that it's going to create an amazing amount of depth and texture. So areas that right now seem a little bit flat will be enhanced with the encaustic. So today is basically about teaching people why do you use it, how do you use it, what are the different processes to go through, what are the materials that you need to use it to create a successful encaustic painting.
So you paint first and then you put encaustic on, not encaustic and then you paint over it.
No, what I do, this is the way that I've been taught, is you do some very bright oil painting layers underneath, layers that are really vibrant, because you need that vibrant color to come through right at the end when you start taking off a little bit of the oils that you put onto the beeswax. The vibrancy of the colors will show through. But what you start with an oil painting. This is my process, is you start with an oil painting with very bright layers underneath. That has to dry completely. Once that's dry, you can start thinking, where would you like some texture? I just love oil colors, so my preference, and I've been taught in that manner, my preference is oil, because oil already has a sense of almost like a luminosity that comes through, and it works really well. Oil is also quite pliable. You can rub in and rub out when you're busy with oils, that I find a little bit more difficult with acrylic painting. Encaustic is basically painting with beeswax. So the spelling is quite interesting. E-N-C-A-U-S-T-I-C, encaustic. And it's when you use beeswax and you melt it and you apply heat to it. The melting process for me is the application of the heat. And you add a few things. You add some varnish to make it a little bit more flexible. You add some candle. Beeswax melted and applied as a medium to paint with. That's basically what encaustic is. Candles that I add to that is just to make the beeswax a little bit more, because it's quite expensive. Lots of different ways to do encaustic. Melt and remelt it. So that's one of the great things about this. I always tell my students, bring your own pot. Remember that this pot will always stay your encaustic pot. Definitely never will be a porridge pot again. The spoon and the brushes that you use with encaustic will always be your designated encaustic art materials. You can't clean those brushes and then use them again for oil colors. So these will now stay your encaustic materials. You'll need is a pot. You'll need your beeswax, preferably smaller sizes rather than big sizes. You need some white candles. You'll need varnish. And the clear varnish should be a varnish that is used for oil colors. It's not an acrylic or a water-based varnish. It's an oil color varnish. And the varnish, the reason for adding the varnish will be it adds flexibility. So that's going to be that. And then you'll need some tools. So I've got a few harder brushes that I use for encaustic. The softer brushes don't work well. They tend to just be a little bit too limp. So you need some harder, maybe pig's hair brushes would be nice. You need an old spoon. And then you need some stuff to scratch with. So it's going to be like little woodcut tools or a knife or a palette knife. Anything like that can work. It's actually quite you can experiment a little bit and see what works well for you. But this is basically the stuff that I would use to make an encaustic painting.